The whole world is saying to America and the Trump administration regarding his sclerotic, reckless, and quite frankly, stupid tariffs, the same way Logan Roy responded to his children in succession. You are not a serious people.
Scott Galloway was a guest on Piers Morgan's show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, where he was invited to go head-to-head, not just with Piers Morgan, but also with MAGA fanboy Kevin O'Leary. I wanted to focus on this particular part of the exchange because of how directly Scott Galloway confronts MAGA, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump. So, in this video, we're going to dive into some clips from Piers Morgan Uncensored, and I'll walk through my own take as we go. Let's jump into it. In this part, Scott Galloway is addressing a moment where Kevin O'Leary accuses him of having Trump derangement syndrome and being obsessed with Elon Musk.
I think derangement, the term derangement, is usually something levied at people when they don't have a cogent argument to counter the arguments I'm making. I would call myself someone who's been infected with democracy addiction syndrome and is allergic to the type of depravity that these individuals are demonstrated. I generally haven't seen Senator Booker's gesture. I think Steve Bannon and Elon Musk both gave Nazi salutes. I've watched the tape a bunch of times. This is an individual who's decided there's a white genocide against Africana farmers. I think he knew what he was doing. It might have been a tick, but he seems to be very disciplined about not making remarks or comments with respect to China. Whenever there's money on the line in a society where he may not have the same rights of free speech, he seems very disciplined. So, yeah, we have a fundamental disagreement. I do believe it was a Nazi salute or a Nazi gesture. I don't see other Republicans accidentally making hand gestures that remind them of the Third Reich.
But Cory Booker did. I mean, you should see it after this. Honestly, you would be amazed how similar the arm movement was and the difference in the way it was treated by.
Well, then it was wrong. I want to give you and Kevin this. If Senator Booker did this, he should be dressed down and say, you should never accidentally, errantly make a gesture that reminds people of the type of death and destruction that we incurred around an ideology that this symbol came to respect. And it just so happens that two guys who have a history of very conservative politics at a very conservative gathering accidentally made this gesture. They should know better. I don't know a lot of people accidentally making gestures that look like Nazi gestures at parent-teachers meetings. Both Senator Booker, I'll take your word, and Steve Bannon and Elon Musk should know better. And it gets in the way of, Kevin, what you were saying, his ability to demonstrate greatness. And I'll be honest, like Neuralink, I think what he's doing in Neuralink could have huge benefit. But the problem is we've decided in our society, well, is it a net good for society? If you could press a button, would you want him to go away? I wouldn't press a button. I think he's inspired the EV race. He may get us to Mars sooner than anybody else. He's created tremendous shareholder value and economic value. I wouldn't press that button. But the problem is with the word net. And that is, just because someone can put a rocket into space and create tremendous economic value doesn't mean they shouldn't be held accountable for or acquitted for personal behavior that sets a terrible role model for young men or recklessly damages the well-being of kids in other nations and reduces our soft power. The reason why our small businesses, and like Kevin, I invest and run small business. I sold my last business for $160 million. A third of my clients were overseas. And one of the reasons I was able to do business with Samsung, LVMH, and Toyota was there was a great deal of respect, affection, and goodwill for Americans. I believe that when Americans walk into a corporate office, a small or medium-sized business, they are more likely to do business with us from a company offering the exact same thing from Turkey or from South Africa. And the reason why is despite the fact that we're perceived as obnoxious, aggressive, that we were the good guys, that people always felt good about America. And one of the best ROIs we have made in soft power was that $75 billion in U.S. aid. And to cut it off this recklessly and this cruelly, you know who's filling the void? China. And for the first time in history, surveys show that people around the world see China as a greater force of good than America. And to believe that doesn't hurt us, whether it's economically or working with our security apparatus to let us know when there's terrorist cells gestating or forming, to believe that it's not going to change the depth of the pools of capital that people want to invest in America. Generally speaking, I mean, Piers, you're British, and tell me if you agree with this. We have our issues. We make a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, Americans are seen as the good guys. And I worry that in the last 120 days, we've lost a lot of that.
Well, I think you've gone back. Well, listen, I completely concur. I love America. I love Americans. I think, like my country, you're a great country with flaws, and people know what those are. I think that Trump's style of leadership is chaotic by nature. I think probably quite often deliberately so. I mean, you said a very interesting thing recently on your podcast, your excellent podcast, The Pivot with Kara Swisher. You said that you've gone from thinking Trump was incompetent on economics to saying, and this is your quote, I believe he's purposefully creating massive market volatility such that him and his insiders can make billions of dollars in market manipulation and insider trading. And that on his meme coin offer, you said this is arguably the biggest grift in modern history.
Before Scott Galloway responds here, I want to bring up a few things he said earlier that stood out. The way Scott Galloway navigates arguments from the political right and pushes back against MAGA talking points is seriously impressive. Kevin O'Leary, we haven't really heard him say much yet, but his contribution here is just tossing out that tired Trump derangement insult. MAGA types seem to love repeating these shallow catchphrases like it's some kind of defense mechanism. And just like Scott Galloway points out, when people start accusing you of being deranged, it's usually because they've run out of actual counterpoints. MAGA folks treat Trump like he's immune to criticism. He can do no wrong, and if you push back, you're the problem. But Scott Galloway isn't fooled by that kind of blind loyalty. He comes armed with facts, and he's got serious critiques of both Donald Trump and Elon Musk, which he lays out with clarity. Kevin O'Leary can't really match that, so all he does is wave it off as obsession. And then there's the deflection when Elon Musk is called out for making a gesture that clearly resembles a Nazi salute. They say, "What about Cory Booker?" And Scott Galloway shuts it down immediately. He says, if Cory Booker did that, it's unacceptable too. Yeah, he doesn't let them shift blame or distract from the real issue. That's how you handle it. No double standards. And then he makes the point, you don't see this kind of stuff happening at school board meetings. He also brings up the business he sold, $160 million. That gives Scott Galloway credibility, and yet he's still someone who speaks up for average Americans. That's rare. Scott Galloway could easily sit back and coast, but instead, he keeps advocating for a better, fairer system. We need more Scott Galloways in politics. Instead, we get people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, who are already rich but still obsessed with grabbing more money and gaming the system for themselves and their wealthy friends.
I mean, it's a pretty striking thing to level at Trump, that he's creating all this global chaos purely for personal gain. Given that when I've interviewed him over the last 20 years, I can't think of a single interview where he's not mentioned, A, the way that China, in his eyes, has been ripping off America, and B, that tariffs are not a very effective weapon to restore America's economic power. So it's not like this is the first time he's talked about this stuff, but you genuinely believe it's all just a way to make himself personally richer?
Well, okay, so I'll acknowledge I suffer from Musk derangement syndrome. I also suffer from basic pattern recognition. He has taken tariffs up or down 50 times. 50 times, taking markets way up, way down. And the net effect, as far as I can tell, is one deal with the UK where we're getting some aerospace technology and Aston Martin engines for 10% tariff versus 15%. There has not been a single deal of any material value struck here. And then the morning that he announces huge tariffs that take the markets into one of their biggest one-day declines, his top cop, the Attorney General, sells her Donald Trump media stock. Zero-day options volume has been the days he takes a tariff up or down. Basically, insider trading laws are no longer in effect. When he can open a Swiss banking account in the form of a meme coin the Friday before his inauguration, and people can put money in or take money out, and nobody knows, and just 10 wallets made billions, while 70 or 80,000 lost billions in the subsequent weeks, we have a level of grift insider trading, or what used to be considered insider trading and market manipulation, the likes of which we haven't seen. So wouldn't he be stupid for him and his cronies? Autocracy is based on the following. You punish your enemies, you threaten lawsuits against them, you announce tariffs against them, and you make your allies billionaires. It seems like there's additional options trading and market participation right before he announces these tariffs going up or down. Because the net effect for America so far has just been a damage in our reputation. They had to send out a letter the other day telling nations to come to the table. This guy is literally the worst poker player in the world. He announces a 145% tariff against China, and before they even respond, he reduces it to 30%. It's like showing up to a poker table, going all in with bluster, and then before anyone can respond, saying, I fold. The whole world is saying to America and the Trump administration regarding his sclerotic, reckless, and quite frankly, stupid tariffs, the same way Logan Roy responded to his children in succession. You are not a serious people. All this has done is reduced our reputation and created incentive for other nations to reroute their supply chains around us. And there are discussions, but they're not happening between America. They're happening between Japan, South Korea, and China, who for the first time in decades are talking about economic agreements. I had dinner with the CEO of Alibaba in Europe, who is touring Europe and selling the Baba cloud into European companies who are working with AWS. Kevin, you want to see a reduction in the revenues of your small and medium-sized businesses? Let us continue to damage our reputation globally with a series of nonsensical tariffs, reductions, increases. Our brand, the U.S. brand now means toxic uncertainty. No one knows how to plan their business against this man who goes up and down. So he's either stupid and doesn't understand economics, see above every tariff in history or every tariff policy, or he has decided, I know, I'll take the markets up and down and let the people close to me and who support me trade in this and make billions. I think that is what is going on.
Kevin, final word to you.
At the same time, on a counterpoint, because, some of the things Scott's talking about are concerns, no question. We're days away from signing the Genius Act, which is the old Stablecoin Act that Haggerty in the Senate is moving forward right now in the House, only because the tonality around crypto, which has been denied by previous administrations, has changed with the Trump administration. I consider that to be the most significant digital payment system act ever contemplated, and it's going to change demand for the American Treasury bill and use and guarantee in some ways that every commodity on earth is priced with price discovery through the American dollar, which I think is a great achievement. Yes, Trump has created great volatility, and you may think that there's some clandestine reason behind it, as Scott has suggested, a form of trading the volatility on an insider basis. If that's true, he'll be litigated in the next administration for sure. I look at it and say, this morning as we speak and have this debate, which I think has been robust, I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed talking with both of you. That I remind us all that we are only 2.42% off the high, the all-time high of the S&P. So something's working very well in America, continues to work well. It still represents 56 cents of every dollar invested worldwide comes to the domestic U.S. market to be deployed. It is the number one magnet for the world's institutional investing. And I would remind us as we have this debate that America's number one export is not energy or it's not technology. It's the American dream. It is the only place on earth where people risk their lives or drown in rivers or get cut to shreds on barbed wire trying to get into the country. I don't see that in China. I don't see that anywhere else. It's the American dream that remains intact. And Trump's primary mandate, and that for every president in the future, is to maintain, and I speak this for any lawmaker, is to maintain the American dream. And I spend a fair amount of my time in Washington reminding him that, because that is bipartisan.
Yeah, well said.
So Kevin O'Leary comes in with this long-winded answer that honestly dodges every critique Scott Galloway made. He throws out vague statements and admits, okay, Trump creates some volatility, like it's no big deal. But anyone who actually knows business, even someone like Kevin O'Leary, should understand that unpredictability is terrible for markets. We've heard it for years. The markets hate uncertainty, and we didn't have the same kind of chaos under Joe Biden. If Kamala Harris had followed similar economic policies, we probably wouldn't be dealing with this either. You'd think real business-minded people would be saying, we're doing just fine under Biden. Why bring back Donald Trump and all that instability? But Kevin O'Leary is fully on board with the MAGA crowd. He's gone all in for Trump. And as much as Kevin O'Leary wants to sound like the voice of reason, he's not in the same league as Scott Galloway. I mentioned this earlier, and I'll say it again. Scott Galloway breaks this stuff down better than anyone out there right now. He's not afraid to call out Elon Musk or Donald Trump, and he does it in a way that cuts through the noise. If you want to know how to respond to the whole Trump derangement smear or the usual whataboutism tactics from MAGA supporters like Kevin O'Leary, just look at how Scott Galloway handles it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who made the stronger case here, Kevin O'Leary or Scott Galloway? Be sure to like the video, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.